our trees for the food forest have arrived, which is very exciting. It's a bit wet and rainy out there, so I'm not sure if today is the day I'm going to have to go out and look on the field and see how waterlogged it is and see whether or not I can get those out there. Okay, so I'm trying to decide whether or not whether it's impossible to plant out today. It is really windy and I think I'm going to regret pre-digging these holes because I'm pretty sure they're going to be full of water. It's been raining constantly for the last few days, so I'm going to go out and have a look, but my hopes aren't high. Okay, so I'm voiceovering this because it was so windy in the original that you couldn't hear anything. I was actually quite pleasantly surprised that these weren't completely waterlogged up here. This is the highest point in the food forest area though, so we'll head down and see how it looks further down the slope. But it's all dry so far. And then we found the water. Yep, that's one full hole. Down here in the main food forest area, most of the holes were holding some serious water. So for the future, I recommend not digging holes in advance, otherwise you might end up doing this. I've been out and had a quick peek. Yeah, definitely regretting using the digger to dig the holes, because I think what we've done is just really compacted the bottom, and now they won't drain, and we're scheduled for a week of rain now, so the odds of them drying out in that time is not great. It looks bad. It looks like that the water level is high, but that's not true. If you dig next to the holes, it's dry under the first sort of couple of inches. It's just where we've really compacted that dirt in, the holes haven't drained and they're just sitting with rainwater in them, so that's going to be a problem. But higher up, those holes look fine, so what I'm going to do is just make sure I really disturb the bottom and the sides, make sure that is not one big compacted lump. So I'll take the fork to them, I'll make sure there's plenty of organic matter dug in with it, and then I guess I'll just get planted what I can today. I'll try to show you what I can, but it's really windy, so you're not going to be able to hear a thing. So there were two parts to this delivery: the big toolbox that I'm carrying in now, and then this black plastic wrapped parcel. So all of this came from the Agroforestry Research Trust, and along with the trees there are some other perennial plants in here for the food forest. So I'm starting a lot of things from seed, but there were a few things that I either couldn't get seeds for, or I knew I'd want to be harvesting sooner than a seed sown plant would allow. So in here, once I actually managed to get into it, so this is a perennial leek. I'll pop this in this year, let it flower, so that hopefully we can propagate some more plants for next year. Then to harvest, you just chop them at the base and leave the bulb in the ground, and then you can just enjoy it like any other leek. I've also got some strawberries, a couple of different varieties, a Florence and a Cambridge favourite, and a rhubarb. There's also some walking onions or Egyptian onions, which I'm really excited about as well. But let's get into the box of fruit trees. So I had a slight moment when I realised I'd knocked the labels off a couple of the trees when I lifted them out of the box, but crisis averted. There were extra labels lower down on the trees. So thank you, Agroforestry Research Trust. So I'm just packing up all the bits I need to get out there and get planting these trees. Hey guys, I'm not actually sure where I left that with all the weather and all that going on, so I thought I would just jump back on, bring you up to date with what I did with all of those trees, and then we'll go out and see where I've put them, talk about why I've put them, where I've put them, and talk about the varieties, because I don't think I did that before. I was too worried about rain and waterlogged holes. I did go out and plant all of those trees, and this next week to 10 days from when they were delivered, we were battling some pretty wet and gloomy, windy weather, so it wasn't easy, and I just had to take opportunities as I could, and I didn't bring the camera out with me. But all of those trees from that Agroforestry Research Trust order are now in, so let's go talk about what they are and why I've chosen them. Okay, I just walked the GoPro up there and showed you everything and chit-chat away, and then I've looked back and realised that you can't really see any of it because it's really sunny. So I'll come back here and I'll talk about the varieties. The one I'm most excited about is my Bardsey Island apple. I chose this one. If you don't already know, our small holding here is on Penllyn, which is north-west Wales. The peninsula is sort of sticking out north of Snowdonia. And if you go down to the very western tip, there's an island off of the end called Bardsey Island, or Innis Enlli, and it has a really, really interesting history. But relevant to my apple here, before I go down that rabbit hole, relevant to my apple, it was a pilgrimage site, and so there was an abbey built on the island back in the 13th century. So then skip all the way to the 90s, and basically there is a tree discovered which in what is thought to be the orchard of this abbey, so it would have been the monk's garden, and there was one tree remaining, and it was this apple tree. So it was found there, looked at, and they discovered that it was the only one of this apple tree in existence in the world. It really was just the rarest tree in the world. So they took it and cultivated it, and now I can buy it and grow it in my garden. How cool is that? So it's super close to us. It's got very similar conditions. If anything, they are slightly harsher, while we are quite grey and drizzly and windy up here in North Wales. They are even more so because they're so exposed out in the Irish Sea. So I know that this can cope with high wind, and I know that it can fruit well in our less than glorious summers. So I'm really excited about that one. I think that is definitely the one that I'm most excited to keep my eye on. I've never actually eaten one though, so fingers crossed they're nice. So then next to it, a good, I would say probably 8 metres away, I've got another apple, and that's a James Grieve. So they're known to do pretty well in a cooler climate, which is grand, and it will pollinate my Bardsey Island apple tree as well. I don't have any historical stories to tell you on that one, sorry. So I've put that Bardsey Island apple in the most exposed spot where I think, you know, it's going to catch the most wind, which might be a problem for other things, but given the history of this apple tree, I'm hopeful that it will cope well and thrive in those conditions, which is really cool. I've also got a cherry tree. This is a Stella cherry. It's very popular here in the UK. It's self-fertile, so I only need one, and I've never had a cherry tree before, so I'm excited to see how that goes. So my Victoria plum. This one is a tried and true. The first house that Nadia and I lived in together had one of these, an established Victoria plum tree in the garden, and we just got so much fruit. You know, it was a rented house. We lived there for 5 years. We did no maintenance on this tree. We didn't know anything about it really. We were just lucky to get a load of free fruit, and so absolutely love the fruit. We know it does well in this country, and it's self-fertile, so again I only need the one, and hopefully we'll get a good amount of fruit off of it. I think the real risk with this one, once it's established and actually putting on fruit, is that the branches get so heavy with fruit that branches would snap. And our garden back in our old house, we did have branches snap, and it was in a completely sheltered spot there. So here it's, even in our most sheltered spot, it's still more exposed wind-wise than that garden was. So I think that's the real concern, is trying to protect it from too much wind, otherwise we are probably going to have branch breakages. So that's why I've kind of tried to tuck it behind a bit of a windshield in this hedgerow, but we'll have to see how it goes. So the fig, this is a Dalmati fig. I'm not a huge fan of figs. I wasn't going to get one, but Nigel really likes them, so I thought, hey, why not? The figs are Mediterranean in origin, so we've not necessarily got the best climate for them, but we've done some walking here since we moved here, and we have seen a number of fig trees, and they were in fruit at the end of last year when we were walking around, so we did find some. So I do know that it can be done here. I've gone with this variety because supposedly it's the best for a cooler climate. It is also advertised as being slightly better with windy environment, so I've tried to put it in the most sheltered spot I can, but we'll just have to see how it goes and see how it copes. So those are all the trees that I bought from the Agroforestry Research Trust, and they all have gone in. I've got another order coming in from Habitat Aid, which has got some crab apples, some hazel and some elder, so they will go in as well. And then I couldn't help myself, because I tried to be sensible with my ordering, because I thought, I just didn't want to go spending like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds when I don't really know what I'm doing. And I thought I'd just start simple. But then once they go in and you realise how much space you've got, it just seems like a waste not to fill it. Now, I didn't really want to go spending sort of 30 to 50 quid on more trees that I didn't really know yet if I wanted or how they would do. But I did see some bargains when we were down visiting back in Hampshire, so I picked them up, and let me show you. Okay, so these babies behind me, they were £6 a tree, and I thought, why the hell not? I've still got space, I've still got holes that were already dug for trees, and who am I to turn down a £6 tree? Now, worst case scenario, these are rubbish and there's not much loss, so I figured I'll give it a go. So I didn't put anywhere near as much thought into these varieties and why I would choose them. That's just what they had and just what I fancied in the moment. So I'll show you what I got, and then we'll go get them in the ground. The only thing I did think about when choosing these was to make sure that they were either self-fertile or I had something that would pollinate them. Otherwise it's all just a waste of time. So here's what I got. Okay, so we've got an opal plum. This is a conference pear. I've got a, what is this? Jonna Gold apple tree. We've got a heddle-fingered cherry, and that's another one of those there because I knew I didn't have anything that would pollinate them already, so I got the two. So I'm going to go bung these in where I've still got space, and then I am going to stop buying fruit trees this year. Maybe. The rest of the brood balls are really quite like packed in, so I've just popped them in some water to soak. I'm going to go have some lunch and I'll come out and finish the rest of these. Once they're all in, I'll come around with some compost and just mulch over the top. So they are all in. That is a great job done. I've watered them in and I've covered them with some compost mulch. So that is great. It's really starting to feel like a little food forest out there. Obviously nothing's growing yet, we're still in winter, but the potential is good. So now that that's all in, with the cheapo fruit trees from B&M and the Agroforestry Research Trust ones, I've got 3 apple trees, a pear, 2 plums, 3 cherries and a fig. Am I forgetting anything? I think that's it. Yeah, that feels good. That feels really good. Oh, so I'm pretty bloody knackered now, so I think I'm gonna go and sit down for a little bit, maybe plan out what's gonna go around all of these trees, and I'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Till next time. Cheers guys.